declare this meeting duly open. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to a very rare bank holiday meeting. It's a beautiful day outside, and I'm delighted that we've got over 50 attendees today, notwithstanding that fact. I want to welcome any members from the Rotary Club of London who are here for the first time. Brian and Myrna, it's the first time we've actually seen you in real life, although I know you've been attending, but we haven't actually seen you. So it's good to see you here looking well. We have got some visitors, of course, from overseas with us today. And what I'd like to do, as I usually do at this stage, is ask anybody who's overseas to introduce themselves and just to tell us the club they're from and in 30 seconds what's going on in their countries. So Clive, if we could work around any overseas guests.
Yeah, I'm going to start with, usual with Tim Moore. I hope I'm unmuted.
Tim, how are we going in Brussels?
We're locked down still. It's reducing this week. We are not, there's a hose pipe ban because there's a lack of water, and the borders won't be open probably until mid-June.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Any other overseas visitors? Let me have a look. Can't see anybody else. Anybody? Nobody
well, we've got
waving.
Stefan.
We've got Stefan and Anne. I'll unmute Stefan. He's a member, though.
Well, Stefan, how's it going in Florida?
Good morning. It's going good. We are reopening, so restaurants are back open. We started with 25% seating last week. We are up to 50% this week, and we continue. And I think we will be back for full operation in 2 weeks from now, despite numbers still going up. So let's see what it will be.
Well, most of the English reports that I see say that you're opening up far too soon in America, but I guess time will tell if that's the case.
I totally agree.
Okay, all right. There's a doctor's perspective. Thank you, Stefan. Lovely to see you here.
And we've got Anne.
Anne, hello, Anne.
Yes, hi. Very nice to be here. In Slovenia, you know, we were actually quite lucky because we have a very few cases compared to other countries. We were the first country in Europe to end the quarantine here. But I live here next to the Italian border, and we are waiting for the border with Italy to be open to see what the devastation here was. In the northern Italy, it will be probably a much different Italy that we know. So far, so good in our country, and I'm hoping everywhere else as well.
Great. All right. Well, very good to see you. Very warm welcome to the Rotary Club of London. Okay, visits to other clubs. I have reports from Robert Ghazi, who has visited the Redbridge Club each week for the last 3 weeks, and from Julian, who has visited the Rotary Club of Colombo. He has visited the Rotary Club of Edgware and Stanmore and the Rotary Club of Harrow. So he's certainly been a busy boy. Something that went into our follow-up newsletter or bulletin last week, but something I didn't specifically mention, is Colleen. Colleen is working or assisting at a charity called Restart in Earl's Court, which is a food bank. So I wanted to say well done to you, Colleen. Fantastic. Keep up the good work. And I think if anybody else wishes to get involved with that project, please contact Colleen, and I'm sure she can tell you how you might be able to assist. I have an email from Brian Sluice, the chairman of CNV. He's given his apologies for today. He's got to do something, but he wants to remind anybody on the CNV committee that there will be a CNV meeting next week at 2 o'clock when the main meeting finishes. There can't be many clubs being chartered at the moment anywhere in the world, I would suggest to you. But our Rotaract Club of London, as you know, was all set to be chartered when the lockdown occurred. And we are now going to proceed and charter it. And that will take place on Wednesday, the 3rd of June. All our club members will have an invite to that inaugural meeting. And next Monday, I have there the certificate of organisation, which is like the charter paper. I will be signing that next Monday at our meeting, and we'll be passing it on to the club. So that's the Rotaract Club of London. As you all know from my special mail out on Saturday, my trip to Tel Aviv, which was supposed to take place next week, is now back on. It is reinstated, but of course it's reinstated in a very different way. And I have arranged a bespoke tour covering pretty much all the places we were going to visit on that trip, with a local, very experienced Israeli guide called Itamar Benn David. And he will take us and give us a live commentary. So he is live, and he will use Zoom, he will use pictures, he will use videos, and he will use drone footage to take us round this program, to explain what is going on in these various places, and will then hold question and answer sessions. So that is very exciting. The cost, as you have been told, is £50 per Zoom link. So if you're an individual, it's £50. If your whole family wishes to gather around the computer, it's still £50. It's £50 per Zoom link to take part in this tour. It takes place Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And I have sent out the full schedule showing what we're doing on the various days. I'm also asking if anybody is going to join. I've got about 20 people so far. Anybody else who's going to join for a contribution to the lockdown appeal. Now, I'm going to give us all an opportunity to meet Itamar, because at the end of today's meeting, at about 10 to 2, Itamar will be joining us. He'll be introducing himself, and he'll be introducing and explaining how he operates, what he does, and showing us some samples of how he does it. So that should prove to be very, very interesting. So please remember at the end of the meeting that we do have that coming up. All right, birthdays today. Klinsman, Marathi, I don't know, is Klinsman on?
Klinsman is not on today.
Okay, well, he is not quite a member, but he's very shortly going to become a member. So I was going to mention him and give him a virtual pen, but he's not here. The other birthday today, it's past President Harry Simmons' birthday today, sitting in his garden there. Harry, there is your virtual pen, and a very happy birthday to you today. Fantastic. All right, I'm now going to give you an update on our lockdown appeal. We have collected in contributions, just to round things a little bit, £8,850. We have had gift aid of over £1,000, so that was well worth doing the gift aid, meaning that we are, well, the actual exact figure we're at this moment in time is £9,899. Absolutely fantastic, almost virtually on the £10,000. So thank you very much to everybody who's contributed so far. As you know, we've given 2,500 to the St. Mary's Appeal, Hospital Appeal, 2,500 to Silverline, and we are now tackling children's charities. We've added a fourth children's charity, so we're giving £1,500 to each of Shooting Star, Roald Dahl's Marvelous Children's Charity, the Rainbow Trust, and Kids Out. We've now added Kids Out, which is a charity supported by GB&I. It's a GB&I partner. So we've got 4 children's charities we're now supporting. So we do need the money, please, to keep rolling into that appeal. Okay, now I've got some thank you letters for some money that we have given in the last month or so. I have a thank you letter from the Maypole project. We gave them £1,000. On behalf of everyone at the Maypole project, I'm writing to say a huge thank you for your very kind donation and support towards saving our vital services. We are facing unique times, and as a small local charity, such donations have a huge impact upon us now more than ever. Your donation is a wonderful expression of support for our charity and will go directly towards supporting families living throughout this period of uncertainty and beyond. Our aim is to provide a service with the qualities that family have told us they need: understanding, confidential, professional, empowering, easy to access, flexible, and ongoing support. Once again, thank you very much for your generosity and support of our work. We also gave £1,000 to the Queen Victoria Seamen's Rest. Thank you very much for your letter dated the 4th of May, enclosing the cheque from the Rotary Club of London donating £1,000 to Queen Victoria Seamen's Rest. On behalf of everybody at the charity, I would like to relay our sincerest thanks to the Rotary Club of London for this extremely generous donation. QVSR greatly appreciates the continued generosity and support of Isabella, that's our Isabella, and the club members, particularly during these very challenging times. I can confirm QVSR would be delighted to arrange for a delegation from your club to visit us and look forward to welcoming you when the crisis is over. And the final letter I have is from the Salvation Army, and we did give a cheque to the Salvation Army of £2,500. But rather than just give a global cheque, we did ask them to allocate it to a specific cause so that we could know more of exactly where our money is going. And I have a letter or an email from Val Mile-Creast, Major, Divisional Commander. He says, at our Camberwell Corps, there is a baby bank, the only one of its kind in the area. There is a regular provision of basic needs for mums who are on benefits or unable to access any help for their newborn, and the provision has been inundated since the COVID-19 outbreak. Today we were told of a mother who went for nappies. When she was asked what size, she said, any size will do. I can wrap them tight or use them 2 at a time. I just need nappies for my baby. We were told of another mother of 39 weeks pregnant who had cycled from Bermondsey to access some help. She took home the goods on the bus, came back on the bus 2 hours later to pick up her bike and cycle home. So clearly it's a charity with a lot of people looking for help, and we've given £2,500 to assist them. So that's absolutely fantastic. It now gives me enormous delight to present an Avenue of Services Award. Vasi, could I ask you to unmute yourself, please, so that you appear on the front screen? Okay, Vasi.
Yeah, hi. I do.
Okay, Vasi, I'm going to present you with this award, and I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you. Vasi joined the club in January 2009. She was made almoner almost straight away and held that position for 2 years. She was then entertainment chairman for a year before becoming vice president, I think it was to Clive Amos, in 2011-2012, and then of course becoming the club president in 2013. Since she has stood down as president, she has been entertainment chair again in 2017. Since she became a member of our club, she has introduced close to 40 members to our club. And today we have something, I think it's about 15 of our 118 current members have been introduced by Vasi. So that's pretty close to 10% of our current club membership. And a lot of those people, Vasi, that you've introduced, as we all know, have been ambassadors and high commissioners who have been stationed in London. Vasi was the almoner, as I said, in 2009. As the almoner, she used to regularly phone those who were unwell and those members who were aged and lived alone and who were unable, either temporarily or permanently, to attend our weekly club meetings. It used to cheer them up a lot. She would update them with the club news. She tells me that some of them were just simply enjoyed chatting with her. And being a people person, I'm in absolutely no doubt that it was very easy conversation, and I'm sure you did that, Vasi, very diligently. As the entertainment chairman, she organized 9 very successful international evening events with entertainment, and all the funds raised went to the eradication of polio appeal. As the vice president in 2012, she did her best to support the president and assist him whenever needed. Although she tells me that she did keep phoning a lot of the sick members and those unable to make the club meetings because she had got to know them so well while she was the almoner. And then, of course, in 2013, she was made our president. We had a fantastic year. She organized an amazing inaugural evening event with entertainment and dancing. She organized a forum of 4 speakers to celebrate the 25th anniversary of women in Rotary. And in the same year, in September, she organized another forum of 4 speakers made up of ambassadors and high commissioners on international Peace Day. Both events she held during our lunchtime meetings. In 2017, she was elected entertainment chairman, and she organized 2 very successful evenings. Again, all the money going towards the eradication of polio. In 2019, she organized the International Women's Day with a forum of 3 very high-profile speakers, and another one in September, again for the International Peace Day. She says it was a great honor and great privilege to be made a president of our historic club. Varsi is a Paul Harris Society founder member. She is a Paul Harris Fellow with 2 rubies. She's a donor member of the Rotary Foundation Bequest Endowment Program, and she has been presented with the Neville Rotary Charity Cup for 2018-2019 charitable services. Varsi, you've done a massive amount to help this club, and you are still continuing to do so. Before I present you over the air with your certificate, I don't know if our district governor, Tony Sharma, would like to add a couple of things. Tony, are you out there somewhere? There you are, Tony.
Good evening, Tim and the London Club. Varsi, your efforts have not gone unnoticed by the district. And when Tim approached me to tell me about the proposed award, I was absolutely delighted. So congratulations, well done. And I look forward to the next 40 members too. Take care of yourself.
We all look forward to the next 40 members. Varsi, there is your certificate, which I shall give you as soon as I'm next able to meet you on some occasion.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to say, Varsi?
Well, I would like to say that since I became a member in 2009, the first thing that struck me, the Rotary Club of London, is the friendliness and the warmth. Everybody's sort of, I mean, the Rotary Club of London is my family. And I always brighten up. I actually look forward every morning, get dressed every Monday, and I look forward to the meetings. And I've always, it has given me such inspiration. And it has been a joy, and I'm very humbled and honored. Your wonderful words you said about me. It's very moving. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Varsi, well done. Many congratulations. And you do, of course, this is not the reason you do it, but you do, of course, get a free subscription to the club next year as one of the current incentives. So well done. Can we all clap? Clive, can you just unmute everybody so we can all clap Varsi?
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well done, Varsi.
Honor of the Rotary Club of London.
Okay, can we mute again? Next, we have our loyal toast, which we will do seated. If you all grab your wine, your coffee, your beer, your water, your lemonade, and we will have our toast to the Queen. The Queen. All right, it now gives me very great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Benn Abdy-Collins. Ben, you are a midlife transitions mentor, you are a medical herbalist, and you're a funeral celebrant, and deal in that in terms of dealing with death. We have a lot of deaths at the moment in this country and around the world, so it'll be very interesting to hear your talk. The title of the talk is Love, Dying, Death, and Bereavement. So Ben, it's over to you.
So, I'll start my speech now. So I opened the living room door. My father stood up and said, "She's gone." My mother had stopped breathing. I stepped forward. I felt the last 2 pulses of her heart from her carotid artery, and the room was filled with silence, the unique silence that always follows a death. And like the movies, I reached forward to close her eyes. And unlike the movies, her right eye would not pay attention and would not shut. It was a moment that changed my life. I helped lay out her body, and I began a process of realizing the importance of love, the importance of life, the importance of dealing with death, and dealing with bereavement, and ultimately why I ended up as a funeral celebrant. I'm trained to deal with the times of end of life and funerals. I work as a non-denominational funeral celebrant. My passion is to bring beauty into the time of dying, death, and bereavement. In preparation for my mother's death, we thought that she was going to have 1 year from the diagnosis of her cancer. It turned out to be 9. During the 8 years that followed that diagnosis, I spent my time wanting to understand and see what was going on. So I went through the process of volunteering at a hospice. And I sat down one day and I wrote a poem for my father for the time that my mother was going to die, so that I could read it to him and share with him the thoughts and feelings that I had and about the message that she might send to him. The poem is entitled In My Passing. I got to read it at her funeral. I got to read it at her memorial service, and I'm going to read it to you now, if I may. I am free now, relieved. Cherish my freedom and celebrate my passing. Allow my journey to continue without any extra weight. Always remember, we have shared our lives, our times together. Not all times were easy, nor our beliefs and choices the same when our souls were bared. If ever I have left you, feeling afraid and alone, forgive me, I ask. Are we ever ready for the living task? Please do not grieve for me, for in my going, my suffering has gone. With the pain and crying, release from dying has come along. I dance now in a better place. May you dance now too, and remember, I love you. Live and enjoy your unique grace. With my mum having gone, my life changed dramatically. She had been wind and tension in my sails. She'd brought many of the good and dark things into my life. My recalibration involved me driving a non-emergency ambulance, taking patients in and out of the same cancer hospitals that she'd occupied. I went on to train with Cruise Bereavement Care, and then I ended up training finally as a funeral celebrant. Her death was the impetus for me to recalibrate my life, to realize, to break open, to see and show my sensitivity, to admit my cause and purpose, and to have me adopting the role of being a speaker for the dead. Now, some would think that my occupation, my vocation, would be somber, full of sadness, racked with all sorts of emotions, but in fact, it's not. My work is about life. It's about the life of the person who has died, bringing them back into the memories of the people there to reminisce and to say their goodbyes, to remind them of the love, the care, the understanding, the possibility, the stories, the entertainment that someone's life often brings to us. Because it's about fulfilling needs. It's about fulfilling the requirements of the bereaved. It's about simplifying the complex as much as possible. And I wrote something particular that I'm now going to read to you. Language, when joined together with presence, empathy, care and kind, intuition and compassion, turns from a blunt tool into prose, into story, into the possibility to personify the life, persona and spirit of the individual. We all deserve an honest representation of who we are in life, in the world. We all deserve the integrity to be celebrated for who we are and what we do. That's what I do. I don't deny the not so good, and I nuance it. When I celebrate the life, I seek to bring a smile into the times of pathos, to allow people to celebrate and to understand, to say goodbye, to learn the lessons from the good and the not so good. During the time I was training as a celebrant, I spent 18 months being a part-time pallbearer. So I would carry coffins and I would lower coffins at burials. That meant I would come across some really quite interesting stories as well as contacts and connections. So there are always the times when the grave and the casket don't quite match. The coffin's too big. So I turned up at a service once and we had a little old lady. She was in a coffin that was 7'2". So obviously the grave that was dug was the wrong size. We had to stop the service, have the grave adjusted, and the family found it funny at the time. Another time was an American casket, which is the one with the split lid. They're used when the families want to be able to view the person when they have died. So the coffin was carried up to the second floor. It was up steep steps, and when they opened up for the viewing, the coffin was empty. What had happened was, in the travel up the steps, body just simply slid down and hidden at the other end. But at the time, the immediate response was, "It's a miracle! It's a miracle!" This is what happened. Dying and death remain two of the greatest taboos that we have. There is a great deal of fear about the times of dying and death, and they needn't necessarily be there, but they provide an opportunity for us to explore, explain, and share our fears, our questions, our integrity, our honesty, or our authority about our experiences, to explore how we think, to explore how we feel, to understand where we feel vulnerable, because just vulnerability is not a place most of us would wish or choose to go. And when we are scared about something or fearful of something, it's that opportunity to explain how we feel, tell stories, tell our experiences. And that's where places like the death cafes come in. They're opportunities to sit down with a cup of tea, a piece of cake or biscuit, and to listen and to share with other people. Because we never know what other people go through, how they experience life, how they experience the traumas of life, dying, death, bereavement, vulnerability. And by having those simple conversations of just sitting and listening and being heard, make all the difference. The times of death and dying have been commented upon by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's famous for creating what are called the 5 stages of dying and death, or the 5 stages of grief. They can be an acronym called DAB-DA, where D is denial. I don't agree with this. I don't believe this. This isn't possible. A is anger. I don't accept this. This should never have happened. B is always about bargaining. What if I do? I want it to return to normal. Please, please, please make it normal again. D is despair. It's about the depression. It's about giving up hope. It's that feeling of hopelessness and not knowing what to do. And finally, A is acceptance. That's accepting what is now. And what people seem to think is that, oh, it should all happen in a particular direction. It should all go D, A, B, D, A. In fact, it doesn't. It goes backwards and forwards, up and down, round and about. It's not smooth. Human beings are complex, but it gives a structure with which people can understand the process that they're going through. Well held, well designed, well understanding funerals help people to feel the hope that they can go through their grief. Unfortunately, bad experiences only compound the fear, the concern, the sadness, and the grief, which, as you were saying early on, Tim, there's a lot of death going around at the moment. And also, it's very obvious in the press that every single day it's about numbers, it's about statistics, it's about a story of someone who's gone that we weren't expecting to go. So therefore, that makes for a greater sense of grief, of sadness, of shock, of mourning, which is where a good funeral service allows at least some of that to shift and change. Now, what would help here, I guess, would be about knowing what a funeral structure could be. So apart from the legal requirements to register a death and what's called dispose of the body by either cremation or by burial, a service still needs to have a structure with which to be able to follow a flow so that we can tell the story of someone's life with ritual and with meaning. So I have a general plan that I work to, which can be expanded or extended. Music to start the service, it sets the scene. An introduction, a welcome, an introduction to the person, an introduction to what's happening, an introduction to myself. That can be followed by a poem or a prayer, a tribute, a written one, a spoken one. It could be a reading from the Bible, for instance, or from a religious text. It could also be a piece of tribute music or a hymn. Often I will have a family member stand up and say something. They might read a poem that they've written. And then 2 or 3 of those different elements might happen before we get to the eulogy or the celebration of someone's life. That would be a piece that I will have written or a family member will have written, and one of us will read it because it's the celebration of someone's life. Sometimes the family member pays a tribute before I actually do all the other rest of the details. Having talked about a person, having brought them back into the room, brought them back into the memories of people, they have a piece of music to reminisce. It's a time for people to have their own memories. It's a time for people just to be silent. It's a time for people to reflect and to reminisce. Before we reach the time of the committal, the time that we send the body onwards on its journey at a crematorium, normally have a poem or a prayer. So if it's a religious service, it's quite often the Our Father or the Lord's Prayer. But I might also, if it's a secular service, have a poem like Death is Nothing at All, because it just transitions between the music and the goodbye. Having achieved that, we then have the closing words in which I sum up the life of the person, their qualities, the lessons that we can learn from them, celebrate the qualities, say some final goodbyes, remind people with special messages to family members, perhaps to rebuild bridges, to remind people of the speciality of the individual. And then we have the closing piece of music, which is always slightly more upbeat because it's a reminder of we're stepping back into life, having celebrated the life and then ultimately acknowledge the death of someone who has gone. If it's a burial, the burial committal will happen at the graveside. It's normally accompanied with poetry and or prayers and or potentially some music or a live performer. All of this is created by words gathered from the family, from the interview, a script that's written from information and intuition. It's then combined with rituals and ideas and understandings of things, but it's all in a script. It's all created in order for people to say their goodbyes in an agreed fashion. So no matter what I write, it's always down to what does the family want and how does the family want it to be. So it would help now if I tell you about how a service will actually happen after the structure. So I will agree rituals with the family, the running order, the way in which the events will happen. So some families will choose to carry the coffin under normal circumstances. That's currently not the case. Family will perhaps light candles. A family will potentially place flowers on the coffin during the time of the reminiscing music. They might choose to sing, play a musical instrument, both of which have happened. They might choose to stand up and say something spontaneous or make a special point of celebrating their loved one's death. If the coffin is open, they might come and say goodbye. With that all done, what's really interesting is that the stories that are told during these times, that the specialness happens and the person is really present because the words make sense. Now, a typical service was anything between what's called a half-hour service time, which is 20 minutes actually in the chapel and saying goodbye, which is then within that, there is the music, the words, the rituals all have to be done. The shortest service I've ever done was 12 minutes long. The family kept shortening my service. I wrote it, they shortened it. I wrote it, they shortened it, which is very fortunate because the hearse got held up on the way to the crematorium. I had exactly 12 minutes in which to deliver the service and still be on time. And I've learned one thing, always be on time, never be late because it impacts on the next family. So this was ideal. For the length of a service, sometimes I hear of funerals that go on for 2 hours or more. I personally think a little over an hour is probably enough because most people start getting bored and start shuffling. It becomes too much to deal with. The types of service I've done include, again, I have a list here if I may. They range from the deceased with no families, West Indian services, secular Jewish services, gay, both acknowledged and not services, burying a friend. That's one of the very strange jobs I've ever done. I looked after an Iranian princess, baby service, Chinese funerals, Anglo-Indians, a merchant banker, a couple who died 4 days apart, Zoroastrian, people younger than me, that's always a bit strange. Some real characters, raconteurs for sure. People with mental health issues to represent their families. Times of great sadness, great celebrations, great stories, phenomenal one-liners. Sometimes I get given some of the best lines ever. And there's nothing like a congregation laughing at the capers of certain characters that I'm celebrating. I've also been webcast, particularly in the current climate, which includes the UAE, the Netherlands, and to Spain, among others. And my age range is really quite diverse. Whilst I've done very few people actually really younger than me, the 17-week premature baby was one of my most spooky services. But I looked after a 99-year-old the other week, and so far I've done services for 15 people in their 90s. Now, that's the background to what I've done. Now, I've mentioned a little while ago a few moments about the Ds are still required. They dominate our fears, and no one wants to die here, now, in a sense of failure, on stage, in pain, in confusion. Most people would rather not die no matter what, regardless of what they think is coming next. The time of death, bereavement and mourning reminds us of the thinness of the veil between life and death and becomes so clear. Most of us would rather stay here, now, with loved ones, for love is powerful. It helps us to find meaning. It helps us to care and be kind. Yes, we can attach to other people as a result, but none of us know the time and date of our ticket on this planet. And if we choose to be loving, to love humanity, to love people, to love the culture in which we live, we can recognize life as both important here and now. But to close my talk, and before opening up for a conversation with you, I'm going to reprise some words written by Marianne Williamson, often wrongly attributed to Nelson Mandela. Again, I'm going to read to you. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? I subscribe to these words and that belief, regardless of our ethnicity or culture, religion, gender, or persuasion in life. We all have hopes, we all have dreams, and we all have fears. And we all need to be heard, loved, and acknowledged. When these are missing, then all our feelings and thoughts around the times of dying, death, and bereavement will always feel very, very disturbing. So, to conclude, I suggest, carpe diem, seize the day, be loving, be grateful, be without regret. The past is written and cannot be unwritten. The future is yet to be created. Thank you.
And thank you very much indeed. And we will take some questions which Clive will facilitate. Just to tell you and everybody else that in fact this week I went to my first, well not surprisingly, first ever Zoom funeral, which actually was fascinating because it was somebody who I knew, but it wasn't somebody particularly close to me. So probably had it been normal circumstances, I might have gone, I might not have gone. It was sort of marginal. But as it was available on Zoom, he had an enormous attendance of people. And in fact, because of the particular circumstances, the readings, of course, were also done by Zoom. And I'm not suggesting that they should ever be otherwise. But it's a very interesting concept, particularly for somebody who has a lot of international friends who don't necessarily want to get on a plane and come here from somewhere in the world for a funeral. if it is actually broadcast by Zoom. So I thought I would just, that's something that's just happened to me this week. I thought I would just throw that into the mix as something that might, when we're out of COVID, it still might be something that's done going forward for people who want a large funeral, but people can't get there for some reason. Have you heard of a Zoom funeral before, Ben?
Oh yeah, my professional organisation have been at the forefront of encouraging Zoom funerals to happen.
Okay, fine.
I've not been involved in one personally.
Right.
But I believe in the same way as the world of work will now be changed because people now realise that they can often work from home. I believe that Zoom will be used a great deal more for the international people. So the reason I was in the UAE on a webcast, which would have been Zoomed if the webcast wasn't available, the family were trapped there in lockdown.
Oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it's going to be the same. We'll have people zooming in from the US and from Australasia, no question in future.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to ask Clive to facilitate the questions. Clive?
Anthony, I'll unmute Anthony. Anthony, your question, please.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was absolutely fascinating. 2 points, please. First of all, what do you think death means? And secondly, how do you view the prospect of your own death?
How long have you got?
Go on.
The association with the physical form, for some people, death means total obliteration, because when a body stops breathing, there's no pulse and the brain is no longer active, that is the time of physical death. But that doesn't necessarily mean, if you believe in the spirit, that the spirit is obliterated or the soul is obliterated. So it all depends on someone's personal viewpoint. In my work as an individual who is there to represent a family and their needs, my personal viewpoints are irrelevant. But I believe that you've asked me as an individual what my viewpoints are.
Yes.
I believe that there is more to the world, and I believe that something happens with the spirit afterwards. In my understanding from my own research, my own exposure to different viewpoints across the world, there are multiple things that could happen next. I don't know which one is the truth, or if all of them are true, but I do believe that much more happens that's beyond what we call the physical world, which is where, for instance, intuition works, empathy works, and the opportunity to plug into what Jung would call the cosmic soup.
Thank you.
I think that answers one of your questions. Remind me of the second one, please, Anthony.
Well, I think you've combined them too. How you view the prospect of your own death?
My own death, it's going to be an adventure, as they say at the end of The Lord of Rings.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Hugh. Let me unmute Hugh.
Can you hear me?
Hugh?
Most religions believe that there is life after death, albeit they have different interpretations of what that life might be. The Buddhists, I believe in reincarnation. Do you have views on that?
Again, I do, but I might be wrong. To me, it makes most sense that rebirth does happen, and if you actually look at the basis of many religions, rebirth does get mentioned in some shape, manner, or form, whether or not it's here on the planet or whether or not it's in heaven, or a version of heaven, depending on which belief system you have. So the rebirth is very much associated with the East, although in actual fact the early texts from the Christian church involved rebirth, but they were taken out during one of the conclaves. I can't remember which one. But the bottom line is, most of us aren't around or aware to know for sure. There's lots of evidence that points to it makes good sense, but everything with life is about an opinion, and opinions are never actually truly facts, and facts are always down to the viewpoint that someone takes of what they think that they see. That might be contentious.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm sure we could go on for a long time with this one, but
oh yes, it's one of those things we could go on for ages on, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Noam, I've unmuted you up now. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Ben, did you come across any funeral or conducted any funeral that the bereaved family had agreed for a transplant? I don't know if you know, but from last week, we changed the law in this country to opt out. And when it comes to the transplant of organ transplant. Did you come across a family that the dead relative decided, and the family decided to donate some of the organs? If you did it come in the conversation because it's one of the greatest things to do after your death? And sometimes we are involved with brain death where the heart is still beating.
I hear you. Short answer is no. But one of my arrangers that I work for, she also works as an embalmer, and she hadn't been told, and the body turned up in the funeral parlor, and it had no eyes.
Oh.
Because the eyes had been donated, and she said it was the strangest experience.
Oh.
But that's the closest I've ever got to that. No one has ever mentioned to me a transplant, because I do know that it's a relatively common thing. Corneas, livers, hearts, lungs, they tend to be the most common organs to be transplanted. But others do occasionally happen too, pancreas. But when I was in the ambulance service, which I did non-emergency, I didn't do blue light work, I did a lot of runs for people with kidney failure. So they would be called dialysis work. People have to go in and have their blood cleaned because the kidneys failed to do so. And I would meet people post-transplant. So I would know them as a diabetic with renal failure. And 6 months later, I'd meet them and they were fine because they'd been given a kidney and a pancreas, because if they were a suitable match for a kidney, they were a suitable match for a pancreas as well. And it was life-changing for them. And typically, of course, you're talking about cadavers donating at that particular time.
Thank you. Isabella was next, and then Ridian. Okay, you're unmuted, Isabella. Would you like to address your question, please?
Yes. Thank you very much for this exposure. I wanted to tell you that I've had a great loss in my family, as all of you know, and I feel like suffocating. So it was very, very difficult, at least at the beginning. But I want to tell you that there is hope, and God healed me completely, and the pain at least will disappear in time. So even if at the beginning I felt like I can't live anymore with the pain, now I'm healed. So there is hope, there is love, at least from God's side, and I feel better now. I thought I'll never be able to feel better than in that moment, but God healed me, and that's why I want to tell you that there is hope, there is healing. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that, because the thing that we all require is hope. If there is no hope, then life becomes impossible. And one of the biggest bringers of hope is being loved and being loving to ourselves. And if we have a loving relationship with God, it always helps, for sure.
Thank you. I now move on to Ridian. Ridian, your comments, please.
Thank you, Clive, and thank you, Ben, for a very interesting talk. I am the son of a clergyman, and on my 21st birthday, a parcel was at the breakfast table in my place because my father thought that it was a birthday present. it turned out it was actually the ashes of one of his parishioners living abroad, and it had been sent to my father to arrange burial. It is in fact illegal under our law to send human remains through the post. I just wondered, is that a collection of vintage wine behind you, or do you actually have a collection of funeral urns in that particular format?
Fascinating question. You remember in my introduction that I'm a medical herbalist as well as a funeral celebrant. What you see behind me is a dispensary of Western medical herbalists. So I've got more alcohol than the average off license. So always pray that my house never goes up in fire, because it will blow the roof off when those bottles explode. Each of those bottles has a minimum of 25% alcohol in it, goes up to 90%. And they contain what are called tinctures. And the tinctures are alcoholic extracts of herbs that they're self-preserving. They can be made from fresh herb, and they can be blended and made easily available for people to take in simple doses. But yes, what you see there is a very large collection of alcohol.
Oh, wonderful. I spend a lot of time in the Worshipful Company of Apothecaries, because my livery company has its meetings there, and all our court meetings are in a room with these wonderful jars. So I wondered what it was. Thank you for the explanation.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for asking.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Yep. Yes.
Can I invite you to do the vote of thanks, please?
Yep. Not me. I am going to invite Anthony. Anthony, could you please give the vote of thanks? You have to unmute, Anthony.
I've unmuted Anthony.
Fine, thank you very much. I don't think anybody who has heard this talk could fail to have been deeply moved by your words, Ben. You had this amazing capacity to reach into the soul, I feel, real depths of every single person who listened to you. Absolutely astonishing ability. What you've talked about suggests that only a very special type of person can be a funeral celebrant. And you've told us really the attributes for that sort of person, which involve being empathetic, being compassionate, having a deep feeling for people, all of which sum you up fantastically yourself. You've spoken magnificently, movingly, and interestingly, and we thank you very much for this, Ben. Would you please show your vote, your appreciation in the usual way, please?
Okay, Ben, in addition to that, I have a Rotary Club of London Speaker's Certificate here, which I will be very happy to scan over to you tomorrow. So thank you very much indeed one more time. And if you'd like to stay with us, you're very welcome, Ben, to hear all about our forthcoming trip to Israel. So thank you very much, finally. Next week, our speaker, for the first time in a long time, is going to be not related to the virus, or I don't think there's any way his subject could possibly be related to the virus. It's Dr. Graham Walker, and the title of his talk is How Art Influences Morality. So we're going to be getting completely away from a COVID subject next week. Okay, now beginning today, I told you all about Itamar and our trip to Israel, which is now back on next week. It will be Tuesday to Friday, 2 hours each day, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Itamar is going to be live, taking us there, guiding us around a whole variety of fascinating places by all sorts of different means. And I'm going to let Itamar now introduce himself and tell you all about the forthcoming tour. Itamar, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you're on speaker view and can see me in the middle of the screen. Thank you, Tim, for that. So in the next few minutes, I want to introduce our plan. And then just if you'll stick around for the next 10 minutes, you also see a nice video that gives you an overview of the landscape in Israel, which I think is beautiful. So just to connect the dots with the last question, the few last questions that I've heard, I understood your team told me what your topic is for today, but I want to connect it with the actual questions that some of you have asked about religion and the afterlife and resurrection. So here we are. Take a look at the place that is just behind me. You can see these ladies over here standing on the Mount of Olives, overlooking the old city of Jerusalem. If you look carefully, you'll see the Golden Dome right over here. You'll see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, this tiny gray dome that you see here. We'll get into the church in a moment.
Ben, can I stop you for one? Ben, can I stop you for one moment? If you all go, in my case, it's top right, and I have alternatives of something called gallery view or speaker view. And if you see that link, probably we're all on gallery view at the moment. If you can click off that and go on to speaker view, what you will get is pretty much the full screen full of Ben and what he is actually showing us. Ben, sorry, it's Itamar. Too big a part. What Itamar is showing us. There's too many Bens here, and you've got a Ben in your name. So anyway, yes, that's something you might want to do so you can actually appreciate better what he's showing us. Sorry, Itamar, please carry on.
No problem, no problem. So yes, it's called the speaker view. So as I said, these ladies are standing on the Mount of Olives, and they're looking at the old city. You can see the Golden Dome, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and over here you can see the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the three holy sites, the three main holy sites of Jerusalem. Now, I think someone opened his microphone and I can hear that. So
I thought they did. I can't see who it is, but please close your microphone. Tom, it's you. If you close your microphone, please. Thank you.
Yes. So I would say that on our visits, on our tours to Jerusalem, we'll explain all about these important traditions of the Holy City. On the Mount of Olives, this is where three Abrahamic religion, Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike, believe that the Messiah will come from, and the resurrection will actually start over here. Where just next to these ladies, there is the biggest and the holiest Jewish cemetery in the world, the Jewish cemetery on the Mount of Olives, overlooking the old city. At the bottom of the valley, between the old city and the Mount of Olives, there is a small Christian cemetery, and just next to the eastern walls of the old city, just over here, where you look, just this area over here, you don't see the cemetery, but you have to believe me, there is a really huge Muslim cemetery, and all these the children of Abraham are all buried eastern to Jerusalem because of the faith that the resurrection will start over there. So I want to quote to you what is the origin of this tradition. It's coming from the book of Zechariah that said, chapter 14, it says, then the Lord will go forth. There will be a war against Jerusalem, then the Lord will fight. Okay, and then it says, then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, making a very large valley. And the faith is that once the mountain is split away, all the souls of mankind will flow to Jerusalem to be judged for their good and bad deeds over here. After this great war, Armageddon, they have all kinds of names for that in the Abrahamic traditions. It says in the Bible, and it shall come to pass that everyone who is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. For the Jews, the Feast of Tabernacles is also known as Sukkot. So there will be one day in the future after the resurrection that there will be one universal holiday of monotheism in Jerusalem, the Feast of Tabernacles. This is, again, if we're looking for hope, if we're looking for some connection between our past and our future, Jerusalem is definitely the place to find it. Now, just a quick overview of the amazing places that we are going to visit. We will visit, as I said, not just, we'll visit Jerusalem, but we'll also visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So I'm showing you now the Calvary. This is the Calvary, the Chapel of the Calvary. You can see the feet of the icon of Jesus just over here, and just behind this glass over here, there is a rock. That's the Calvary, and these women in the middle, they're gonna kneel and touch the rock of the Calvary. Another important stone in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the Anointment Stone. This is where the body of Christ was treated just before he was buried in a cave, the cave of Joseph of Arimathea. That's his tomb, and I'm going to show it to you in a few moments. That's how the bedrock, the stone bed where Jesus' body was laid in the church, that's how it looks like. So this is, again, just to show you these three important places in the church itself. Okay, so beside of Jerusalem and its important places, I'll just say that we're also going to visit a few other places. So let me just share my screen for a moment. I want to share with you Google Earth, and unfortunately I couldn't figure out how to do the setting that it will be in English. I hope you can all see this rock over here. What you see here is the rock of Mount Moriah, the foundation stone, the source of life, I would say, in the biblical tradition. This is where the creation has started. So let me just show you how the Golden Dome looks like from inside. The foundation stone is inside the Golden Dome. And from here, we're going to start our journey. Again, this is the Golden Dome from inside. You can see it's an amazing Muslim shrine. We're going to talk all about the Islamic traditions as well, the Jewish tradition, and also the Christian tradition. So from here, we're going to start our journey. Get ready. I hope you won't get too dizzy from it. Okay. So this is the Haram al-Sharif in Arabic, Har HaBayit in Hebrew, the Temple Mount. This is the plaza over here where the temple stood in the days of Solomon and later in the days of King Herod. This is the old city. All this area over here, that's the old city. And earlier I showed you, I stood over here showing, like in this area, showing you the old city from here. And you can see now the cemetery of the Mount of Olives. It's really gigantic. Most Israelis are not aware how big and how ancient this cemetery is. Some of the tombs here are 2,800 years old. So this is just to give you a perspective. So I'm going to leave Jerusalem now. Just to give you a proportion, okay, this is the Mediterranean over here, Tel Aviv area, just over here. Then we have Jerusalem, just over here, sorry. And the Dead Sea, okay? We're gonna visit the Dead Sea area, the Judean desert. So that's how it looks like, this area. We're gonna visit this nice little nature reserve called En Gedi, a place that is mentioned in the Bible as the place where King David was hiding from King Saul that was chasing after him after he defeated Goliath, the giant. And then we're gonna visit Masada, which is situated just over here. The beauty is that I can show it to you like a helicopter almost. So let's get a little closer. You'll see this rock of Masada. See? That's how it looks like, this rock right over here. Let's take a look at a few pictures of what we have on this mountain. We have a Herodian palace. Again, King Herod is mentioned as the bad guy from the New Testament that killed the innocent. This is Masada from the bottom, and they climb up. That's what you see over here. It's from another angle. Again, this massive rock of Masada. It's like a natural fortress. Sorry for me fading out. I don't know why it's still happening. I think it's the angle maybe. Okay, sorry about that. On the top of the mountain, we also have these amazing mosaics that you can see over here. This is just a few of these remains that we have. We have much more than that. And the Dead Sea, again, a nice treat to float at the Dead Sea, the lowest place on Earth, 430 meters below sea level and counting. It drops about 1 meter to 1.2 meters every year. Beside of that, we are also going to visit the coast. So let's go back to our Google Earth. We're going to visit the coast. So as I said, we're going to visit Jerusalem. We're going to visit the Dead Sea area. And let's zoom out. We're going to visit the Mediterranean area. We'll start with Caesarea, which is situated over here, about 40 minutes drive from Tel Aviv. Let's see what we have here. Just getting closer to Caesarea area. And we have the theater, the hippodrome that you can see from right here, and the ancient port just over there. I will show you a video. Oops. I will show you a video of Caesarea in just a second. So you'll see how beautiful this little gem that we have in Israel is. Here we are. Share our screen with this nice one. Okay. So you can see over here the Crusaders Church of Caesarea. This is the Hippodrome I was talking about just over here. Oops, I can do the full screen. Yeah, you can see the Hippodrome. This is the Herodian Palace. We actually have proofs that Pontius Pilate was here. Okay, we have found inscriptions of Pontius Pilate. We found one of his rings that actually says Pontius Pilate, again, the man that sent Jesus to his crucifixion on Good Friday. You can see the storerooms and the bathhouse area just over here. Again, the Hippodrome to the right, just this part. So Caesarea, again, it's the place to learn about the connection between the Western civilization as we know it today, and ancient Rome. Again, this is the port that was built by King Herod, very big port, the theater. So beside of the connection and the roots of the Western civilization in ancient Rome, we'll also talk about the clash between ancient Rome and the Jews, and how one of its, I don't want to call it byproduct, but one of the things that happened in this clash is the birth of Christianity and the long exile of the Jews for the next almost 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple in the year 70 AD. So we're going to talk about how Christianity emerged largely, not just from Jerusalem, but also from Caesarea itself. Caesarea played a significant role in early Christianity. So this is just a little taste of Caesarea, and I'm going to conclude with Jaffa. With Jaffa, a second. And after that, we'll have a little journey to the different areas of Israel, the landscape of Israel, from north to south. Okay, here we are with our Google Earth. Okay. Very good. So we're from Caesarea, we're going south down to Tel Aviv, and Jaffa is actually ancient Jaffa, and Tel Aviv, this will be our last stop, because Jaffa is the port city. It's a very ancient port city. Okay, this area over here, it's a very ancient port city, but this is also, I would say, the place, or the capital of early Zionism, the Zionist movement. The little port that you see here, that was the gateway of the Zionist movement, the Zionist pioneers, the nationalists, the Jewish nationalists that built this country. So Jaffa and Tel Aviv together, this is the place where I would say modern Israel was born. This is the place where it was born. The Declaration of Independence, for example, it took place in Jaffa. So I want to show you, hopefully that will be good enough. It should be the right place. Yes, good. So this is the landscape from the hill of Jaffa. What I'm showing you firstly is this tower over here. It's a church called St. Peter's Church. So there is a story about Peter having a vision in Jaffa. And after that, he understood he has to spread the gospel, not just for Jews, but also for non-Jews. It's written in the book of Acts, just in the chapter 10 or 9, if I remember correctly. Then we have modern Tel Aviv, just over here. Okay, so modern Tel Aviv that was born from Jaffa in the early 20th century. It's not that old, Tel Aviv. It's only from 1909. That's when it was born. So Tel Aviv, again, is like the capital of the Zionist movement, I would say. So this is a little bit about what we are going to talk about, the spread of Christianity from the coast and the return of the Jews in modern time in the Zionist, by the Zionist movement. Okay, I'll stop this part. And the next thing I want to show you, Tim, just let me know if I'm running out of time. We have a few minutes just to show you, I want to show you the landscape of Israel. And if there are any questions, I would love to hear you out. So let's just start this one. We can't skip any commercials, right, these days? So we'll be over soon. I thought I organized it well, but no. Okay, so Israel is a very, very diverse little piece of land between Europe, Asia, and Africa, and we have a very diverse climate, and it's a land bridge between these different, I almost call it, I can call it civilizations, between ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, later between the Muslim world and the Christian world. Okay, the Muslim invasion was happening from this area, from Israel and Syria, northern to Turkey, and western through North Africa. So over here you can see the north of Israel, which is very green. We have lots of oak trees and other trees. We have the Hula Valley, which is a very known bird sanctuary. The bird migration goes through the Jordan Valley, including Hula Valley just over there. So we have half a billion birds, from 500 to 600, from 600 species every year. What you see here is Gamla. It's an ancient Jewish city that was destroyed by the Romans in the days of the Great Revolt. This is the Star of Jordan. That's how it's called. It's an ancient Crusaders fortress. So also the Crusaders, of course, were here. They have a lot of fortifications all over the country, including Caesarea, by the way. And here we are in Caesarea. This is the theater of Caesarea. The port, this part I already showed you. But again, because we're going to visit Caesarea, I wanted to emphasize it a little more. What you see here is a Turkish fortress, Ottoman Empire, built by the Ottoman Empire. But this place is historically was also a Roman city called Antipatris, and it's a very unique place as well. This is the tomb of Prophet Samuel, the man that anointed the two important kings of Israel, Saul and David. So this is where he's buried. It's not far from where I live. This mountain that looks like a volcano is Herodium, the tomb of the bad, evil King Herod. Okay, so he's bad not just in Christian tradition, but also in the Jewish tradition. And we have his tomb just outside Jerusalem, about 50 minutes drive from where I live. This is just the coast, Ashkelon, amazing remains of Ashkelon, an ancient, very ancient actually city. It's actually a biblical city from the days of the Philistines that ruled it. We have our own Colosseum in Israel, by the way, in a place called Bet Govrin. So this is a smaller one. And Bet Govrin and Maresha is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of the interesting cosmopolitan, almost I would say, culture, a society that was there. This is Masada, the 3 steps of Masada, the palace with the 3 steps built by King Herod. That's the mountain. I mentioned that earlier. And here we are in En-Gedi a little bit. You can see the cliffs, the strongholds of En-Gedi. It's mentioned in the Bible. This is where David was hiding. Gedi in Hebrew means a kid, a baby goat. So these are the ibexes, the wild goats. We're going further south towards the Red Sea, and you can see how the climate has changed. Okay, we came from the north, that is kind of European almost. We have a lot of snow over there. Then the coast, which is Mediterranean, and now we're in the south, which is a part of the Sahara. At Eilat, the Red Sea, we actually have the most diverse tropic tropic sea in the world. The coral reefs over there is the most diverse coral reef in the world. So this is Eilat, or Aqaba on the Jordanian side. That's the beauty of the nature in this area. So it's coming from very green and lush to the Mediterranean, then down south to a very extreme desert, which is a part of the Sahara, and the coral reefs of Eilat. So I hope you had a nice little taste of Israel in this few minutes. So Tim, thank you very much for the time you dedicated for me.
Itamar, that's absolutely tremendous, and it's given everybody a taste of what might be coming. And I'm not going to ask for questions now, because you would have hundreds and hundreds of questions on everything you've shown us, and we would be here till 6 o'clock tonight. But of course, those that come on the tour will of course be able to ask you whatever they wish to ask you on the tour. So thank you all very much. Please book up and do join the tour. As I said, I've got, I think, nearly 20 people so far signed up for it, which is very good. One thing, if you're coming on the tour, please try to get hold of some Israeli wine. You can get Israeli wine in Waitrose. Tim War, I'm not sure where you're going to get it, but please try, and we will have a toast with some Israeli wine at the end of each of our 4 sessions. Okay, thank you very much. Can you all please now, Clive, could you unmute everybody, please? Could we all grab our glasses, our cups, our beakers, for now our final toast? Rotary and peace the world over.
Rotary and peace the world over.
Thank you all very much indeed, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Meeting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.